Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to speak out of order for the purpose of inquiring the schedule to the Majority Leader.
Without objection.
And I also ask, Mr. Speaker, unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you. With that, I would like to yield to my friend, the gentleman from Maryland, to inquire about the schedule for next week.
I thank my friend for yielding. Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, the House will meet at 12 p.m. for morning hour debate and 2 p.m. for legislative business, with votes postponed until 6:30 p.m. I remind members that's Tuesday, not Monday. We will not be in session on Monday. On Wednesday and Thursday, the House will meet at 10 a.m. for morning hour debate and 12 p.m. for legislative business. And, Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the House will meet at 9 a.m. for legislative business. Last votes of the week are expected no later than 3 p.m. We will consider several bills under suspension of the rules, including H.R. 1595, the Safe Banking Act of 2019, as amended. The complete list of suspension bills will be announced by the close of business today. The House will consider 2203, H.R. 2203, the Homeland Security Improvement Act, and H.R. 3525, U.S. Border Patrol Medical Screening Standards Act. These bills will improve how the Department of Homeland Security oversees border issues in a humane and responsible manner, including the care of children. Members are, of course, advised that there is additional legislation that may come forward. And I yield back to my friend.
I'll thank the gentleman for going through the schedule. I do want to extend, as the gentleman I know would join me in extending our sincere condolences to our friend, my counterpart as the Majority Whip of the House, Jim Clyburn, on the loss of his wife, Emily, married for 58 years, a wonderful family. I know she'd been battling for a while, and she's in a better place. But for our friend, I know it's a tough time. I got to know his daughter, Mignon, who served on the FCC for a number of years during the Obama administration, and she definitely learned from her mom and dad, just a wonderful person. And so, as I'm sure my friend would join in to extend our sincere condolences and our heartfelt prayers to our friend Jim Clyburn and his whole family during this difficult time with the loss of his wife. And I would yield to the gentleman.
Thank you, gentlemen, for yielding. Not only that, I know that Mr. Clyburn, the Clyburn family, very much appreciates his condolences and his remarks. Jim Clyburn and I have known each other for over half a century. His wife, Emily, he met during the course of the civil rights struggle. She, too, was a drum major for justice, as Jim Clyburn has been. She has, as you pointed out, been facing health challenges for some period of time. And yes, she is in a better place, but as one who has lost his spouse, I know what a difficult time this is for Jim Clyburn. I would let all the members know that there will be a service in Columbia, a wake on Sunday at 5 o'clock in Columbia, and the funeral will be in Charleston at 11 a.m. I intend to be in attendance, and any member I know would be welcome to be there as well. But Jim Clyburn has been a giant in this body. He's been a leader on our side of the aisle now for almost 20 years. And before that, a leader of the Congressional Black Caucus, and somebody who's been a strong voice, particularly for rural communities and for people who are challenged either because of the color of their skin or their economic status. And so I know that Emily was his partner in those efforts, as you know, and she was a wonderful, warm woman and will be greatly missed. But your observation that she is in a better place is one with which I agree, and I know that Jim Clyburn agrees as well. So I thank the gentleman for his comments, and I know that all members join us in sending Jim Clyburn and the family deepest sympathy and condolences, and I yield back.
And thank the gentleman for yielding. Our hearts will be with him during that ceremony and service, and we'll all be there to lean, for him to lean on us during these next months and time that is going to be difficult. But we appreciate the fact that he's going to continue to be with us, but will probably be leaning on us even more, and wonderful, wonderful family. I'd like to shift gears and ask the gentleman about the USMCA trade deal. I know there have been some more negotiations with Ambassador Lighthizer, and just last week he had sent a letter in response to some of the issues that were raised by the speaker and her team that's working on USMCA. And I know he worked in those weeks after the initial requests were made to try to see how each of those could be addressed, hopefully in a way that allows us to move forward with an actual vote on the House floor on USMCA. I just wanted to inquire if the gentleman had any timetable or update on where we are in those talks, and I would yield.
I thank the gentleman for his question. I don't have a timetable, but I share his view that we want to move this along. As I told him, and the speakers on the floor, we are trying to get to yes on this. Again, we appreciate Mr. Lighthizer, Ambassador Lighthizer's good faith. We think he's been dealing in good faith on behalf of the administration and on behalf of getting to an agreement. So we appreciate that. As the gentleman knows, we are eager to update and improve NAFTA so it functions better for the American businesses and workers. However, for House Democrats, as you well know, getting NAFTA 2.0 done right means doing more than just changing its name. We need to make sure it changes actually its work. And by that we mean enforcement. Both the Speaker and I voted for NAFTA. We were concerned and disappointed that the sidebars were not carried out. So we are pursuing that. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, as you know, has said, and I quote, "The commitments in a trade pact aren't worth the paper they're written on if they can't be enforced." Not only do we agree with that, but that has been our experience. So we are hoping that we get mechanisms to accomplish that objectives. In 25 years, we've only had one successful enforcement action under NAFTA, dispute resolution procedures, and none in the past 20 years. So that's why we believe enforcement is so very important. I will tell you, and I know that you will find this as a positive. There's a meeting today with the task force that was set up by the Speaker, headed by Mr. Neal, with Mr. Lighthizer, so that this process is under active and vigorous consideration, and we hope we get to a place where the administration will be able to submit, pursuant to the statute, the proper agreement so that we can proceed on it. But we want to get this done. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman, and I would just encourage those talks to move as quickly as they can, because as we share the interest in making sure that not only do you have better agreements, which this USMCA deal that was negotiated with Mexico and Canada does have better provisions for the United States, you need to make sure that there is proper enforcement, because if somebody doesn't follow through, then you need to make sure you can hold them accountable. And while I'm confident that there are already enforcement provisions in the agreement, if they can be made stronger, I know Ambassador Lighthizer is working to find a way to do that, but also in a way that doesn't start the whole process over, where we don't have to open the entire agreement up, and then Mexico, who has already ratified it, would have to go back. Canada stands waiting to move on it as well, but right now we are the holdup, and there are a lot of jobs at stake, over 160,000 jobs. Our farmers are counting on this. So many other manufacturing sectors in our economy are counting on us. So hopefully we can move quickly to work through these, but then ultimately get it passed and moved to the next countries that want to enter agreements with the United States, and ultimately to confront China to resolve the differences that we're having with China. But I know the gentleman's working on his side, and again, I would just encourage that we do that as quickly as possible and expedite it and then get it passed. But we'll continue working on that. Something else we'd like to work on in a more bipartisan way is drug pricing. The president's been very clear that he wants a bipartisan bill that's worked out here in Congress to lower drug prices. There have been many efforts made and, in fact, positive steps taken by the Energy and Commerce Committee to pass a package of bills out of committee unanimously to lower drug prices. Unfortunately, the Speaker took a different turn, and yesterday had a press conference and then ultimately filed a bill last night, H.R. 3, which was written in secret. Many Democrats don't even know what's in it, but no Republicans were consulted and were involved in the process, and it ended up becoming a very partisan bill, much to the socialist left, which wouldn't solve the problem, but more importantly, wouldn't get to the president's desk, because it's not an effort that involved any bipartisan cooperation. And again, I point out there was a bill, a package of bills that passed unanimously out of Energy and Commerce that would lower drug prices. Both parties agreed. Every single member on Energy and Commerce Committee agreed. Unfortunately, that was shelved in lieu of this partisan approach. I would hope that we take it more seriously than that and actually work together to get a bill that the president can sign to lower drug prices as quickly as possible. And the approach that was taken yesterday does not answer that call, and I would hope we do better. And I would yield to the gentleman.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Let me first say, if you want to pursue bipartisanship, I know that you all want to use the word socialist, which was egregiously misidentified in an ad that I wrote to you about, which was a hateful ad. My suggestion is liberal, this, that, and the other. The drug bill that we have is going to be dealing with private sector producers, privately owned, of prescription drugs. This is not anything about socialism, but I know you want to use that word. I know your advisors apparently have told you that's going to be a catchword that politically would be great for the next election. But if you want to seek bipartisanship, let's just not try to color everything we say in terms that clearly reek of partisanship, not bipartisanship. Now, as to the bill itself, very frankly, we introduced a bill yesterday. The committee's been working on it. When I say the committee, the Energy and Commerce, the Education and Labor, and the Ways and Means Committee have all been working on this bill. There's been no secret about it. We've been discussing it. It has three components, essentially. As you know, it has a component of negotiation, which, of course, as you know, the Veterans Administration does so right now. I don't know whether you think that's socialism in the Veterans Administration. Maybe you do, but in any event, it is not a unique proposal. It puts inflation limits on drug prices, so we can't have drug prices that people need to maintain their health and their lives increase 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 700, 800% in a very short period of time. We don't think that is really what ought to happen. And lastly, it restructures the Medicare Part D benefit to cap out pocket spending for seniors, somewhat as you did with your Part D under President Bush. So this is a proposal that is doing what we said we would do in the last election, and that is try to work at bringing the cost of prescription drugs, life-saving, life-enhancing, health-enhancing drugs so that people are not priced out of the market or have to make a choice between food, mortgage, rent, and the prescription drugs which they need to be healthy. Now, I agree that we do need a bipartisan solution, but so does the President of the United States. And when the gentleman says done in secret, let me give a quote what the President of the United States says. Quote, "I like Senator Grassley's drug pricing bill very much." I will tell you, I do not know the depths of Senator Grassley's bill, but it's Senator Grassley's bill, a Republican chairman of the Finance Committee. Now, continuing to quote the President, "And it's great to see Speaker Pelosi's bill today." That's the socialist bill to which you referred just now. Let's get it done in a bipartisan way. In other words, what the President of the United States is saying, the Republican chairman of the Finance Committee has introduced a bill. Speaker Pelosi and others have introduced a bill. Let's try to work together on those bills. That's what President Trump said just the other day. That's what I expect we're going to do. And so I appreciate the gentleman's comments. We hopefully can work in a bipartisan way because this is a very critical challenge that the American people face. They know they need these prescription drugs to stay alive, to stay well, to be able to continue to work. But if they're priced out of the market, they suffer, and therefore our economy suffers, and therefore we all suffer. So I share the gentleman's view that I hope we can get this done in a bipartisan way. Senator Grassley has a proposal. We have a proposal. Let's see what we can do together to assist the American people in having something that they absolutely must have. I'll yield back.
And thank the gentleman for yielding. And a number of items to address there. First, clearly there is a kind of a recoil that seems to happen by yourself and a number of others on your side when the term socialism is used to identify the policies that are being moved forward.
I wrote the gentleman a letter. Did he believe that that ad that I complained about and that I thought was so egregious, so disgusting, does he agree with me that that ad totally misrepresented what socialism is? It deluded the American people. It was a big lie. Does the gentleman agree with me?
Well, first of all, and the gentleman yields back, I haven't seen the ad you're referring to, but if you want to start going through ads and you want me to send you some ads where people on your side lie about positions that members on our side have taken, I'll be happy to give you a litany of false ads, misleading ads, and we can go back and forth on that. But if you're trying to hide from the term socialism when you promote socialist policies, we can have a debate about what socialism is. It's an ideology. It's not a word that's thrown around, and it involves government control of your life. And so when you move bills like the Green New Deal, when you see a presidential candidate on your side running around saying he's going to go to people's houses and take their guns, that's a candidate for President of the United States on your side. Those are socialist policies. If you don't want the term applied, then don't promote that ideology. Don't embrace that ideology. Reject the ideology, but you won't. You want to try to play it both ways. You want to try to act like you're going to impeach the president, but say you're not going to impeach the president. You want to promote the Green New Deal, but you don't want to bring it to the floor so your members have to be exposed to the vote. But ultimately, as long as you're going to embrace and allow socialist ideas to come forward, people are going to call it for what it is. And if you don't agree with socialism, then just stop embracing the ideology and the actual policies. And so when you talk about a bill where the president said, and you read it, I'll read it again, let's get it done in a bipartisan way. The bill that was filed by Speaker Pelosi yesterday was not a bipartisan bill.
Was Senator Grassley's bill a bipartisan bill?
And so we're talking about the House bill. The Senate bill is still a work in progress, and we all know how the Senate works. And maybe they produce a bill, maybe they don't, but it's not a final product. The bill that was filed on your side yesterday is a bill that most of your own members haven't even seen because it was written in secret only from a very far left approach. When Speaker Pelosi yesterday was asked if she's willing to negotiate a bill that doesn't allow the government to negotiate prices, she said, quote, no, absolutely, positively no. So she's not even willing to negotiate. That's not bipartisan. That's not an approach that's going to get a bill signed into law to lower drug prices. You want to lower drug prices? We worked together. By the way, Ranking Member Walden was not even consulted, but Ranking Member Walden worked with Chairman Pallone to bring bills out of Energy and Commerce, for example, to stop a process that currently is legal, that allows drug companies right before the patent expires when the drug is about to become available for generics. Companies, of course, go and make the generic drug. And right now the process of the FDA is for a period of time, usually a rolling 6 months, one company is given the exclusive rights to provide the generic for a period of time. Ultimately, other companies are allowed in, but for the first period of months and months, could be years, only one company has the exclusive right to do the generic, and the drug companies are allowed to pay the generic company not to sell the product. So you only have the original drug. You don't have the generic available because the companies can pay the company not to make the generic. We have a bill called No Pay for Delay. You can't, we make it illegal for the drug companies to pay the generics not to make generics. That will lower drug prices. We also improve the process where you can get the drugs to the generic companies earlier so they can make the product. The companies actually have to make a generic. You have to have available the details of what's in the drug so you can make the generic. And a lot of times the companies don't give that information to the generic company. So it's harder to get generics, which are lower prices. It's not the government coming in and saying, whatever you think, if you think that you know what a drug price should cost or any product should cost, you know, good luck out there in the marketplace. But if you want to stifle innovation, if you want to stifle the ability to actually go and invest and have companies come up with life-saving drugs, it costs billions of dollars. You want to lower drug prices? Work with us to reform the FDA process so that it doesn't take 10 years and $5 billion to develop a drug. There are real things that can be done in a bipartisan way to address that. And yet the gentleman won't do that. His party won't do that. They want to sit in a room and come up with a bill that nobody else has seen, that no Republicans were allowed to be a part of. That's not going to become law. And so there's a way to lower drug prices. And again, there was a package of bills passed out of the Energy and Commerce. Every single member, Republican and Democrat, voted for it. That's the path right there to get something done, and you shelved the bills. You threw poison pills in the bills so they won't become law. Why not work with people who have the expertise and came to an agreement? That bill could be signed by the president today. People could be paying lower prices for drugs today, but you won't bring that bill to the floor. Why not bring that package of bills to the floor? If you want to come up with other ideas to lower drug prices in other ways, great, let's work on that too. But at a minimum, bring the bills that already came out of committee unanimously that absolutely everybody agrees, Republican and Democrat, will lower drug prices, and you refuse to bring that bill to the floor, that package. Why not do that? Would the gentleman consider bringing that package of bills that was unanimous out of committee to lower drug prices? Every Republican and every Democrat agreed on the committee of jurisdiction, these things will lower drug prices, and we can't get a vote on that. I'd yield to the gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, we brought a bill to the floor that the gentleman spoke about that prohibited pay for delay, prohibited drug companies from paying generics not to bring their drugs to the market so that drug prices would be lower for consumers. Mr. Speaker, of the 194 Republicans, maybe even 98 Republicans, I don't know how many were elected at that point in time, 5 of them voted for it. $190 voted against it. Because it also said that we wanted to protect that no one with a pre-existing condition would be denied health care. 5 Republicans voted for that bill. 6 years, the Republicans, Mr. Speaker, were in charge, totally. There was no effort to bring a bill to this floor to bring drug prices down. And in fact, Americans know drug prices didn't come down. The president was a Republican, the House was a Republican, the Senate was a Republican. They didn't bring a bill to the floor, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker. 2 of the 3 proposals in our bill are also in the Grassley bill. And, Mr. Speaker, we are going to have regular order. We've introduced a bill. It's going to go to committee. It's going to be subject to amendment. There's going to be subject to debate. It's going to be subject to hearings. Now, we'll see whether it's a bipartisan process. Because very frankly, the record of bipartisanship when the Republicans were in charge is pretty absent. Of 19 of the major bills that we passed, we got 618 Republican votes, so they weren't too partisan. Now, admittedly, about 400 of those votes were on 4 bills. It went through this place in a very bipartisan fashion. So I would hope, the gentleman, that we will see bipartisanship when the committee marks up this bill. And we will do what the president says he wants to do. We'll see whether he supports that. You got a Grassley bill, and now you have a Democratic bill on our House. You're going to have hearings in the Senate, led by Republicans, Mr. Speaker. We'll have hearings here, led by Democrats, but Republicans and Democrats will both participate in those hearings, and it's going to be bipartisan. And we will see whether we can come up with bipartisanship. But the gentleman continues to want to make some political patina with this, some partisan patina, Mr. Speaker. I asked him, but he didn't respond. He says he hasn't seen the ad. I wish he'd look at the ad. It is an egregious piece of political diatribe. But I would hope that he would also urge his members to work together. And this business, we negotiate for drugs right now, Mr. Speaker, through the Veterans Administration to ensure that our veterans get the best cost they can get. But apparently, that's okay. But doing the same thing, Mr. Speaker, for American consumers of prescription drugs who are not veterans is somehow characterized by the gentleman as government control. I urge the gentleman to proceed as he speaks on a bipartisan basis and see whether or not we can get to an agreement in this House. But we're going to pass something to bring drug prices down for the American consumer, because that's what we promised to do, and we're going to do it. We hope we can do it in cooperation with everybody in this House, but we're going to do it. And I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I would hope that the gentleman is not going to try to use the VA as the standard for care that every American should get. We saw the scandals at the VA, veterans dying, waiting to get care. We actually passed legislation, this Congress, that got signed into law last Congress, to allow veterans to go to another hospital that can actually treat them if the VA is not doing the job. And I know a number of people in your party oppose that, but our veterans appreciated it, because while you might be able to get good care at some VA hospitals, there were, in the scandals, you've seen the ads, those aren't false ads, where veterans literally were dying, waiting to get into VA hospitals, and the VA was telling us there was no secret list, when in fact there were secret lists that were not allowing these veterans to get proper care. And so the VA Choice Act was passed specifically to address that problem and ultimately allow our veterans to be able to go to another hospital if the VA isn't properly taking care of them. Our veterans deserve the best care. And if a VA hospital can't provide it, then someone else should. And in fact, now other hospitals are. And our veterans have asked for that and now have that ability. But if the gentleman wants to talk about bipartisanship, again, I go back to the bills that passed out of committee unanimously. When those bills came to the floor, they were changed to make them partisan. And if you think 5 Republicans out of 197 is bipartisan, I think you need to go and look back at what ultimately is going to allow a bill to become law. And to become law, it's going to have a lot more support than that, which means the games have to stop being played. The poison pills can't be put in a bill and then expect that to become law. You can pass it out of the House, and it'll never become law. And so the ultimate goal, I would hope, would be for us to come together to get a bill to the president's desk. The bills that came out of committee unanimously could have absolutely gotten to the president's desk and would be lowering drug prices. Once you start adding things to them, maybe you get a few Republicans here and there, But ultimately, you took a unanimous bill and made it a partisan bill, and it's not going anywhere. And so there is a path, if you want to get it back on track, to get a bill to the president's desk. You can make statement or you can make law. And I would hope we do both. We actually work together to make something come together that not just can pass the House, barely get it across the finish line, but where we can get overwhelming support. And the ability's there. And those bills, by the way, took years to come together, just like the 21st Century Cure Act, a bill that took a long time to put together when we were in the majority, but ultimately got to the desk of Barack Obama. And he signed it. And it's great law. It's something that ultimately is going to help us cure major diseases. And we came together to get that done. It's law. It wasn't just a bill that we passed out of the House in a partisan way. We worked with Democrats, and we got it done. It's on the books now. So I would hope, if we're looking at models to use, that we look at the models of those bills that have actually made it all the way through the process, where we worked with people on both sides and solved real problems. That should be the objective, not to make a statement and just work with a few people here and there when you have a roadmap for something that can be overwhelmingly passed out of this House and then get to the president's desk. So I would yield if the gentleman had anything else on
Thank
that.
the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, the gentleman didn't answer my question, of course.
What question was that?
It has nothing to do with the standard of care at VA, managed by the administration, which of course has been had the presidency for the last 3 years. Whether you pay $5 per prescription drugs or $50 per prescription drugs, that's not the standard of care. That's how much you're paying for the drug that you think helps either a veteran or a non-veteran. But let me say this. He keeps talking about, Mr. Speaker, these bipartisan bills. The reason they weren't bipartisan passing this House is because we added ACA protections. We added pre-existing conditions provisions to those bills. And the Republicans, therefore, voted against. Why? Because they've been against the Affordable Care Act in its adoption, against it in the campaigns. And when they had the opportunity to change it, they couldn't do it. They came up with a goose egg, Mr. Speaker. And the president said during the course of the campaign he was going to present a bill which included coverage for every American at lower cost and higher quality. I tell the press as soon as he sends that bill down, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to vote for it. He's been president now for 3 years, a little short of that. No bill has come down. And the bill that the whip, Majority Leader Speaker went down to the White House and cheered about, look, we passed this bill. They sent it to the Senate. The president was there at the White House with a great bill. 14 days, within 14 days, he called it a mean bill. Let me tell you what the president further said, Mr. Speaker, and the characterization differs from the characterization that my friend, the Republican whip exhibit. The president endorsed Medicare drug price negotiation in his campaign and put forward a proposal to use international prices as a guide to limit out-of-control U.S. prices. That's what your president said. And the administration has endorsed the other two concepts of inflation limits on drug prices and improving Medicare Part D as part of the legislation put forward by Senator Grassley. I guess everybody has their own definition of bipartisanship. I yield.
Well, clearly, as the gentleman talks about the Grassley bill, that is moving through the Senate, and let them do their work. Let them find a way to come together with their 60-vote rule and produce a bipartisan bill. I encourage them to do that. They haven't yet, but I encourage them to do that. When the gentleman talks about the ACA, let's be clear, because the vast majority of people on your side now, especially in the presidential campaign, the Democrat candidates for president are not talking about the ACA anymore. They're talking about what is referred to as Medicare for all. And if you read the bill, and I know I'll yield in a moment, but if you read the bill, Medicare for all, number one, gets rid of the private insurance marketplace. Over 180 million people lose that health care. Then you look at Medicare Advantage, an incredibly popular and successful part of Medicare, gone, goes away. So 200 million people lose what they have now that they like, and everybody's placed in Medicare, which, as we all know, pays below market rates. Most rural hospitals have said they close. If that bill passes, they can't even operate. They will close because they can't continue to run and make any kind of profit. They lose money and they ultimately close down. They've said it. People know, people that understand how the healthcare marketplace works, know that if you get rid of the private insurance market, that's what's paying for Medicare and Medicaid today. And so Medicare for all, which again, it's the catchphrase that's being used by every presidential candidate on your side, and maybe they all want to have their own version of it, but it's a far different place than even the ACA. So we can continue and will continue to have a debate about the best way to fix our broken healthcare system and focus on lowering prices, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, but in a way that you can actually let people choose their own plans, buy whatever they want from wherever they want it. And that's how people get all other products. Healthcare, for various reasons, doesn't work that way. But clearly on the drug pricing side, there have been a lot of good ideas that came together that would be proven to lower drug prices. And if we want to get into the high cost, which I agree is a problem, let's look at the fundamental reasons why it cost billions of dollars instead of maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to create a new life-saving drug. There are reasons that the cost is so high to bring a drug to market. And thank goodness there are companies that are out there willing to invest billions of dollars. Sometimes they don't succeed, by the way, and they have to eat that cost. But if they do succeed in finding a drug, a new drug that will save lives, it typically costs billions of dollars and years of bureaucratic red tape and other processes that they have to go to finally bring that drug to market. That's where we should focus our energies, on compressing that process so it can happen quicker, addressing other problems within the way that a drug comes to market so that it doesn't cost billions of dollars and we can have more life-saving drugs at lower costs. But if we're going to ignore that side of the equation and just say, here, we're going to just set the price without addressing the fundamental problems that are leading to such high costs, then all that's going to happen is nobody's going to make the investment to go find the next life-saving drug. And you'll never know what could have happened, but we see every day there are amazing breakthroughs in medical technology. And we want to continue encouraging that. Something like 21st Century Cures actually achieves it. And again, we came together to put that bill into law to now allow for life-saving drugs especially in areas like cancer and Alzheimer's and ALS. And we're going to get real big breakthroughs. There are already some breakthroughs coming because of that. That's the model that we should use, and I would yield.
I have nothing to say.
With that, I know we'll have more debates next week over the limited number of items coming to the floor. Hopefully some of these other items can get addressed in a bipartisan way, but I know there are other battles ahead, and we'll do our part to try to come together to address these problems. And if the gentleman has nothing else, then I would yield back the balance of my time.